So, Gail, they called you Honeybear. What is that all about?
Well, interesting. A bear is referred to as a trooper or a cop. Honey is referred to if you're with a girl and you forget what her first name is, they call her Honey. So therefore, Honeybear came to, I was known as Honeybear because the truck drivers named me that through the CB radios.
Cool.
My father had a CB. His handle was KGB 1922. So back in the 70s when I was a road trooper, that's what they used a lot of times. The truckers were on the CB.
And there she is. You call her Honeybear on her your CB?
On the CB, yep, that was the name. Yep.
Okay.
So I was a member of the 91st State Police class, started in September of September 30th, 1974. We graduated in January of 75. We had about 120 males and females entering the class in September. We ended up graduating 80 people, 79 men and myself as the only female. There were 3 females who were admitted into the class. 2 showed up. The other girl's name was Janie Balaga, Hostetler Balaga. We still remain friends all these years. And we're talking about 45 years ago is when I entered the state police class. So that was a lifetime ago. It was called the 91st class, and I was badge number 3020.
So any questions for Gail at this point? Okay, we'll move on.
It was interesting. The newspaper had this first article that was just on the screen. When it was revealed that females were invited into this class, originally a lawsuit was filed against the state police by people under 5'8". The requirement for the state police at that time was 5'8" and 150 pounds. And there were both men and women who wanted to join, but were under that height and weight requirement. So a lawsuit was brought about, and they did admit from then on men and women under 5'8" and under 150. I happen to be 5'8", and I weighed a whopping 152, and I wish I weighed 152 now. As you get older, of course, you gain weight. But that was an honor to be admitted into the class. I knew ahead of time what was going to be required. There was boxing, which we show pictures of it here. And but before we get into that, I'd like to give you just a tiny bit of a history of me. I'm from Dover, New Jersey. I have a sister who's 6 years younger. My parents were both active in the community. I knew in 5th grade I wanted to be a police officer. A cop from Dover Police Department came into my class in grammar school and gave a speech, and I knew right from then I wanted to be a police officer. Shortly thereafter, I used to help my grandmother in the hat shop in Dover, and I used to walk back and forth. At that time in the 70s, they had wanted posters at the post office. I saw a wanted poster of a man who lived in the Morris County area who had an indentation in his forehead, and he was on the wanted poster, wanted for something, I don't know what. Believe it or not, in my travels of walking back and forth to school, I encountered a man who fit that description. I actually followed him home. He lived in Wharton. I walked all the way to Wharton. And when I got back home, I told my father, who in turn called the Dover police, who in turn went and interviewed the guy. He was not the guy on the wanted poster, but it was my first dealings with wanting to be a police officer. I always found that comical that I actually found somebody who had an indentation in his forehead. So anyway, I then worked for Dover Police Department for several years as a special officer and in the Records Bureau. And I met several troopers then, and I knew then that I wanted to become a police officer. Dover at the time was not going to be hiring a female, although once I passed the test, they of course said, gee, we would love to have had you here in Dover, but at that time it was too late. I met a lot of the police officers in college too. I went to Morris County College. I attended a criminal justice program there. I graduated, got my associate's degree, and once there, many of them encouraged me to take the test, and there were others who didn't necessarily encourage me to take the test. The state police had been in operation since 1921. They had no women, and it's a big adjustment when a woman then is attempting to become a trooper, and there's a lot of animosity. Then there's a lot of the good press too. The newspapers had a lot of articles about me. All of them were flattering, but they caused dissension sometimes with the guys that I was working with or the guys that I was in the academy with.
So Gail, in this picture that I said you're boxing, and I read that quote before, it says you were boxing other women, but what is the truth of this article?
Well, the truth of the article is, and we all know that newspapers don't necessarily get it 100% correct, but there was another woman, I mentioned her name, Janie Balaga, Hostetler Balaga, and but when you box people of your same height and weight. She was several inches shorter than I was and only weighed 130 pounds. So they paired me up with a man by the name of Warren Mabee from South Jersey. He weighed exactly what I did, and we boxed at least 10 or 15 times together. We were in sync height and weight, which is what they want to do in the academy. But besides that, in the academy, besides boxing, we also had calisthenics. We had running. We ran 5 miles on only once, but on many occasions we ran 3 miles. It's not the fact that you're running the 3 miles; it's the pace at which you're running. You run in cadence. In other words, you're running in a group. When someone puts their left leg down, everyone has their left leg down. So that's a little more difficult than just jogging on your own. We also did sit-ups and pull-ups, and as you see, they're boxing. And we had firearms, and in the academy, which was 18 weeks, you also learned about juvenile delinquency, you learned about motor vehicle law, you learned about first aid, you learned about all kinds of safety issues. It was 18 weeks of very stringent calisthenics and education in the classroom to be learned.
So here you was 5 months, and you were the one female standing.
Yes, Janie lasted to the 17th week, and on the 18th week we graduated. Yes.
And here we go. And this is big news here, Daily Record. State cop barrier just about to fall. And here are a couple pictures. Here you look more relaxed. Here you guys look very serious up here.
Oh, yes, we're very serious. It's a day before graduation, and we all have now taken the big step, and we're practicing how to graduate, walk down the aisle. It's like a wedding. You're practicing how to walk down the aisle, and you're practicing what is your responsibility there at the ceremony.
So as you march shoulder to shoulder with your classmates, you got your cap, uniform.
Yes.
There you are.
Yes. That picture, I believe, was in the Star Ledger. That is the 80 recruits that were graduating there. And the problem with these articles is that when the press used to come down to the academy, I actually used to lose time from the educational portion that we were doing. And so actually it's a deterrent because I can't catch up on that kind of stuff. But I did understand that it was news, and it was good news, but it also opened Pandora's box to having some hard feelings then with the guys who I now am working with. Here we are there marching, and you see we're all in cadence, and we're there at the State Police Academy in Seagirt.
It's still there, isn't it, the Seagirt?
Yes, and they still train there in Seagirt, yes. It's part of the National Guard. And there we are practicing for graduation there. And you see my hair is a little long. And thinking back, I should have just cut it because my hair had problems, because as soon as it touched my shoulder, then I would get a demerit, and then you have to paste targets. It was a long process. I should have just cut it shorter and made things easier. I guess I didn't have scissors. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't cut it. But I really didn't. This article says I didn't want to be a celebrity. That's really very true, because you're in this position because you want to help people, and you're in this position because you want to do your job not at 100%, at 110%. And when the articles used to come out, they used to cause a problem. And you're working with guys who some like you, some don't like you. But that's not just in the police field. That's in every organization. You have to prove yourself. They don't want you. Just because you've graduated the academy doesn't really mean you really know what you're doing. That's why we have a that's true. That's why we have a 3-month where you're with a coach. Now, there's a lot of coaches that are more involved in motor vehicle summons writings or drunk drivers, and then there's other coaches that are more involved in searches and seizures, guns, narcotics. Everyone finds their little niche. I find that the trooper that you're paired with, you tend to take on their personality. Mine was Trooper Chet, and he did a variety of everything. They gave me an excellent coach, but mostly we were diggers. We used to look for drugs and drunk driving and guns, and we found lots of them at that time. It was the laws were a little different, and we had a lot of arrests. And with every one of those arrests, you learn something, because you learn things in the academy, but you need that 3 months with somebody out there on the road. You may know the knowledge, but you don't know how to do the job. And by the way, my first station was Blairstown, and in Blairstown, it was above Seidel's Electric Company is where our barracks was, and we slept there. We hotbedded it. You slept there 2 nights in a row, and then you were off for 2 days, and then you came back to work for 2 days, so you were back and forth. Now, you weren't on duty for 48 hours. You obviously went to sleep, but you were called in case you were needed. You had a regular shift of, I don't know, probably 14 hours. I really don't remember. But then you did sleep, and we ate there too. So it was a very interesting life. It was an honor to have been able to be exposed to that, because looking back in history, I actually never really paid attention to the honor that I had. I was actually too busy keeping my head above water, necessarily paying attention to what was happening. And I really mean that, keeping your head above water, because you run into all different things that happen, and you have to be prepared. And you want to do the very best you can. State of New Jersey had invested a lot of money in me, and I was going to make sure they got every penny of me serving them for the amount of years that I could serve.
Wow, for a public servant, that's a great.
No, I really mean that. I really mean that I took my job very serious, as most of the guys, I'm going to say all the guys did. You're there to serve, and it's very important to serve and do your job properly. And I can look back over the years and said, I did that wrong, or I did that wrong. And I regret that, but that's what experience is about. You don't do everything correctly, but you always try to do it correctly. But here in this one here, that's another name they gave me, Gutsy Gail. But sincerely, when I tell you the academy was tough, the academy was very tough. It was very grueling. Shin splints were a major problem for everybody because we did so much running. Before I went into the academy, I was prepared. I could easily run 5 miles. I could do push-ups and pull-ups up the kazoos, but it's the amount of running that they do. They do more running. They do it at a different pace, and that extra 15 seconds off your mile, or the extra minute off your mile, that makes a big difference on your knees and on your legs. Here in this one picture, we're lifting weights. In the middle picture, I'm smiling with my aunt at graduation, and on the far picture there, we're doing calisthenics, stretching, and things like that. They really did prepare you for boxing and for fighting and for aggressive clients, if you want to call them that, or perpetrators. I prefer to call them bad guys, but we can call whatever we want to call them. But truth be told, you do encounter them, but you encounter a lot of nice people too that you help. That was another name they gave me. Again, that hair, I should have cut a couple inches off. Maybe it would have been better.
So can you remember this day and what you were thinking?
Oh, that was just before graduation. That's in the recruit uniform, and in the recruit uniform, I'm now taken out of out of criminal justice class or something, and the press is asking me all kinds of questions, and I'm saying, listen, we have to make this short because I have to get back because I have to learn all this. Listen, I'm not the smartest person around. I was a B student in high school, and to be in this career, I need every minute of every class. So it was comical. They thought I wanted to be there for hours and talk to them. In reality, I did not. But the state police encouraged me to do this. And I think in this article here, I think Janie is still with us, and I think she was talking to them too. And she was a very nice person. She, as I said before, she was shorter than I was. And if you, strength-wise, I was significantly stronger than she was, and that was apparent because she was significantly shorter. But she still would have been an asset in different organizations within the state police. But you don't go to those other organizations, such as narcotics, organized crime. You don't go to those until you do 5 or 6 years on the road, and then you're eligible to do that. So you have to do those 5 years. I totally enjoyed working on the road. Actually, I enjoyed high-speed chases. If I knew they were going to run on me, I always used to say, "You'll never outrun me. You will never outrun me. You'll never outrun the radio." So we didn't lose very many. This here picture here is when I first reported to Morristown, dressed appropriately. I actually think I have a skirt on, which I never wear a skirt. I hate skirts. I hate dresses. I was a tomboy and I still am. But here I am, dressed the part, carrying my uniform to get my picture and stuff taken there at Morristown headquarters, and the press, of course, were waiting. Oh yeah, this is in probably my second station. You know, besides being, when you're a road trooper, you do many things. You are on the radio in the barracks. Again, in Clinton, down, same thing. We slept there too. That was my second station. You're answering the telephone, which is important, just as a dispatcher does. You're in and out of the car. You're doing accident investigations. You're doing suicides. You're doing dead bodies are found along the road. You actually do find them. And you're doing domestic disputes. You're doing high-speed chases. You're doing drunk drivers. And I have several nice stories of drunk drivers. And I usually got along quite well with them. You were arresting people for a lot of drugs and guns. I will say one thing here. The truck drivers who named me Honeybear, the truck drivers were very helpful way back then. You had an accident scene. The truck drivers also often called them in to the station via the CB radio, and they often help you put out flares and stuff like that, which is very important. When you arrive on the scene, if there's injuries, you're tending to that. You need somebody to put out the flares, and sometimes we didn't have another trooper handy, and the truck drivers were more than happy to put out the flares so that the oncoming cars knew that there was danger ahead. And I always, I spoke to them occasionally on the CB. I enjoyed their helpfulness. One time here, it doesn't show this here, but on Route 80, we used to have the VAS car and the radar where you would catch somebody going the opposite direction, speeding. And of course, that was my job too, speeding off the highways. So we used to cut the median. Well, cutting the median is very simple to do, except when you've had rain. Well, this one time I cut the median. I forgot that it rained. Who gets stuck in the mud but me in car 147? I was so embarrassed. All of a sudden, the trucker starts stopping, and I'm thinking, oh no, there's a car accident ahead. God help me, there's a car accident ahead, and I'm stuck in the median. That's not what they were doing. They were coming to push me out. They pushed me out of the mud in the middle of the median. Of course, my guys in the barracks knew what was happening via other CB radios. And of course, they could tell my car was full of mud when I got back to the barracks. But I was always internally grateful to the truckers for being helpful, not just to me, but to other troopers and other police officers on the interstate highways. I hope I'm not talking too fast. I have a tendency to do that. If anyone thinks I just give me the heads down that I'm talking too fast, please. Okay, after 1 year, Gail got off the jet.
Okay, I'll give you a break. Where's your water, Gail?
That's okay.
Okay, sure. So after you became the trooper, your treatment, of course, was the press was always taking pictures, but you felt women and men should be treated equal. And tell us a little bit about your background as your family. You were daughter of a special officer fireman.
Yes, my father was a special officer in Dover. He was also a fireman, and he also ran, he had a car dealership. My mother worked at Picatinny Arsenal, and she also worked at the cafeteria in the local school when I was there in middle school. I have a sister. She was 6 years younger than I am. She also worked at Picatinny, and now she's in Albuquerque. I believe she's on here. I see her there. And as I got older and was in the state police at age 30, I married another fellow trooper named Barry Cornelius. And we have one son named Brett, who's now 40 years old. And when everyone was younger and I was younger, we adopted a little boy from South Korea named Michael. And he also lives here in New Jersey. And he now is a lieutenant in the New Jersey National Guard. And he's very active in that. He's working there full time. My son Brett is a fishing guide up in Alaska. And I live in Alaska half the time, and I'm living in New Jersey the other half of the time. I go back and forth. New Jersey is my Florida compared to other people going from New Jersey to Florida.
Do you still have horses here?
I still do have horses. Yes, my horse is 35 years old, and the vet was just there last week because he ate something he wasn't supposed to. So yes, we still have horses. We have a farm. We live in Sussex County. And my husband's also retired. He was badge number 2325 out of the 74th class. I was badge number 3020 out of the 91st class. Interesting how we met. There was a call of 5 stolen vehicles in Hackettstown off of 517. He took my call because I was further away. We worked midnights at that time. We each have double partners. So he and his partner got to the scene first and had one stolen car perpetrator under arrest. But there were 4 or 5 other ones left there in the Hackettstown area. So me and my partner arrived slightly later. Several of these perpetrators had dropped their cars off there at the Panther Valley area on 517 and ran into the woods. So we're all running in the woods looking for these guys, and we found most of them. But that's how I met my future husband, and we married like 5 years later.
That's excellent.
It was fun. It was a cute story, right?
So, Gail, can you tell us a little bit about in Alaska, the Valdez spill?
Oh, yes. We do get almost 30 days off from the state police. And back in 1984, when I was assigned to the Narcotics Bureau, I was on the road trooper for a while. Then I went to organized crime. Truth be told, organized crime deals with a lot of gambling and organized crime type stuff. Okay, we don't want to necessarily go into that. But that really wasn't my bag as much as narcotics was. I can easily buy drugs. I can talk to anybody, as you can hear on this.
Did you have a dog, a drug
No, I have no dog, no.
Okay.
But in narcotics, I probably bought dope 1,000 times. I bought dope from kids that were 16. I bought dope from people who were 70. I bought mostly.
I appreciate your concern.
I actually never bought any heroin at that time. The early 80s, cocaine was big. I once bought cocaine from a police officer who works in Bergen County. And later on, I ordered 2 keys of cocaine from him. His partner worked for Sears in the appliance department, and his other partner was an anesthesiologist in the local hospital. And they were selling me 2 keys of cocaine for a total of $40,000. And anyway, they are no longer in their positions,
I can
and
imagine.
they have all gone to jail.
So we'd like to open up for some discussion.
I'd also like to tell you about some cute stories that
Oh, yeah.
happened when I was assigned to the Newton station. I was riding down Route 94, I believe it was, and there was a horse in the corral, and I have horses, and I see him. He's laying down. He's got his back foot up in the air, and he's got his foot caught in the fence. So I have nothing to get him unhooked with. And I go back to my troop car to attempt to see if anybody's in the area that's got a pair of cutters. Who comes down the road but the telephone company. I flagged them down. I says, come with me, bring a pair of cutters. And we cut the fence and we got the horse loose. But, I mean, that's a cute story. And it just goes to show you that you're going to have many talents that are needed in the state police. Being a tomboy, being involved with horses, people who are involved in other things. There's always a room for a talent, and it comes in handy when the animal is in jeopardy.
Gail, I have a question about if you got into an altercation with someone much bigger and stronger, and what happened?
Okay, I was involved in 9 fights in my career on the road and in narcotics. I had several of them there. You know kind of how things are going to go by the attitude of the bad guy. If I start approaching him and he starts backing up, that's a good sign on my part. That means I may very well win this. If he starts coming forward, then I know, well, he's going to be more aggressive than I really want to hear, but it happens. It's easy, not easy. It is easier to get the first cuff on someone. It's harder to get the second cuff on them. All the men and the women, only had 1 fight with 1 woman, but the men mostly were bigger than I am. Of the 9 fights that I had, I needed help, and I say help, in handcuffing 2. 7 I won all on my own, handcuffed them, took them to the station. The other 2, let me explain this one. One was a guy that was on the corner of Route 15 and Route 80, and he had a small amount of marijuana. He was a hitchhiker. I often, search hitchhikers. I let them go. Excuse me. I would often take them to their destination if it was along Route 80. In this case, this guy was going to Pennsylvania. That would have been a total of about 30 miles. No, instead he's got the marijuana. I put it in my pocket. Later on, we're fighting over the marijuana. I've got 1 cuff on him. We fall to the ground. We roll in the grassy area. We roll in front of my troop car. We roll to the slow lane of traffic on Route 80.
Oh my God.
Middle lane of traffic on Route 80. Then we start rolling back. The cars are buzzing by me. I mean, they're buzzing by me. Their brakes are screeching. I never called the stop in because it's only a hitchhiker. I can handle this. Luckily, 2 men I see coming out of the corner of my eye have parked their cars running towards me. They're both Essex County corrections officer. We then ended up putting the handcuff on the guy, and I ended up taking him to the station. I called into the station. By that time, the station knew what was going on because of the CB radios. And once he's in the back seat of my car, he's banging his head against the glass as if I'm punching him. That didn't happen. We did get some cuts and bruises from our tussle and rolling, but that was one that I really don't want to repeat. And we were just very lucky there. God has his hand in things. And
Yeah, quick question about that. Was it illegal to be hitchhiking then, or why were you bothering with a hitchhiker?
Well, I was bothering with him because I was going to cut him a break and take him to Pennsylvania. So you're not going to get in my car if you have guns and weapons on you. So that's why he was searched. And if you want to ride to Pennsylvania, I'll be more than happy to get rid of you and take you up there. But I have to search you before you get in my car. And that's how that came about.
I have a question.
Let me finish our story. When he finally ends up, getting back to the station, he's deemed mentally unbalanced. We take him to Greystone, and he burned his bed.
Oh,
Wow.
Can I tell you? Okay.
Mary Grace, were you there?
wow. No, I had a question about you driving. Were you often on your own, or did you ever have a partner in the car?
No, we only had a partner when we had when we had the recruit program for the first 3 months. You drove singly for for the second shift and the third shift, which was from 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. You were singly in the car. You drove during the midnight shift to 7 o'clock. You always had a partner then.
Wow.
And if you were going to search a car or something like that, you were supposed to call it in and then so that they knew where you were and maybe backup would be there. But, you know, we're talking about a time when you didn't have a lot of troopers on the road. There was only 5 troopers on my squad. So we have a lot of big areas to cover. So you pretty much are on your own.
Gail?
As far as the other guys that I was in altercations with, yeah, I won. Listen, I'm nobody to mess with. I took my training seriously, and I often have said to the people afterwards, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Either way, you're coming with me one way or another. And if you harm a hair on my head, my guys will be here in no time at all. So that sometimes put the fear of God in them on occasion, because you're coming one way or another. Let's not make it extra charges. Let's keep it as what we got so far.
Hey, Gail,
Yes.
it's your sister.
Oh, hi, Judy.
Hi. First of all, I want to tell you publicly how proud I am of all the things you've done, and you're just a terrific sister. I wouldn't trade sisters in a million years to have somebody like you.
Well, thank you. I wouldn't trade sisters either.
Well, but you need to tell them that, you know, going to the State Police Academy, you just didn't show up. I mean, she spent months and months and months studying. Gail's not the best in math. Okay, I'll tell you, math and computers, Gail is not that person. She spent months. She had tutors come to the house and teach her different geometry and calculus. And, you know, the state police test, don't just think that you just show up at the academy and you run around and march and all that stuff. There's a lot of academic stuff that starts even before you're allowed into the state police academy.
I used to walk to and from work and jog every single day. I jogged. Everyone saw me jogging here, there, and everywhere.
So she, you know, you just don't show up. You are not only that, but they are smart people. They are smart people. The test is, I took the test, I failed. You know, I'm not proud of that, but I failed the test, and that was a very difficult test, and the written test. And so she's no dummy. Gail's a smart person, and I just love her very much. You're doing a great job.
That's sweet.
Hey, and don't forget to tell them Daddy made you a gym in the backyard.
Oh yes, my father did a chin bar so I could increase my my pull-ups. Actually, I have pictures of that someplace where I'm practicing all the time, because in the academy you did push-ups and you did pull-ups and you did calisthenics, and it is true, we had modified push-ups and pull-ups for the women. However, we didn't know that when we entered the academy, and at the end of doing these modified push-ups and pull-ups, I did the man's physical push-ups and pull-ups, and I did very well.
Gail, did you talk about your arm?
If you see my arm, I have, you know, we all get illnesses, and in this case, I ended up getting cancer several years ago, and breast cancer. And I had my breast removed, and this is a result of, this is lymphedema, where your arm swells. And I can honestly tell you that cancer strikes many people, and the better shape you're in and the better mental shape you're in, the better you do. It's very similar to the stress from the academy, because you have to go through certain things in chemo. But I give my doctors at RCCA, they're in Sparta, a lot of credit. They got me through this, and I'm on the road to recovery, and this is the only problem I have.
And you also need to tell them.
I have chemo brain, so when we're doing this talk, if I lose a word, it's because I have chemo brain.
You also need to tell them the story about Brett at McDonald's.
Oh, I should tell that story? Okay. My son, who was 5 at the time, and I were at Burger King. And I go and I get the food at Burger King, and he's holding the table. This is before I adopted the other son from Korea, Michael. So Brett, he's acting very oddly when I come back to eat, and I said, "What's the problem?" And he says, "Nothing." So we get into ShopRite, and now he's going to tell me what the problem was. Well, the problem was that at the seat next to us, at the booth next to us, he heard these 3 boys talk about doing damage to a car dealership that was here in Newton. It was called Newton. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the dealership. But anyway, it was a dealership, and it was wintertime, and they had a snowbank. And on top of the snow was a car. And these kids had plans on Friday night. They were going to come and push the car off of the snowbank into the other new cars that were parked there for sale. So my son's telling me the story, and I says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, those 3 guys next to us, that's what they were talking." I said, "Why didn't you tell me when we were sitting there?" And he says that he didn't want to. So now my husband is in charge of the Sussex station, and it's that Friday midnight shift. So I tell him, "Listen, this is what may very well occur at this car dealership." So we stake somebody out at the car dealership. Sure enough, these 3 kids show up, and they start to push the car off, and the troopers come and arrest them. All because a little boy who's 5 years old was eavesdropping at Burger King, and his mother and father are troopers, and all these kids got caught. It was hilarious, but and my son got a $50 a bond from the dealership for his actions, and he pays. He had smart ears. That is a very funny story. Thank you, Judy.
Gail, the oil spill, that's.
Oh, in 1984, there was the Exxon Valdez oil spill. I was stationed in narcotics there in Hackensack, I believe. I took several weeks off because I really was interested and saddened by the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and I went up there as a volunteer, and we went and we and me and other volunteers combed the coast and found all these dead birds and dead fish and dead seals, and we put them in a big pile, and later on they were burned. But what we were doing was helpful because it was in the spring, and at this time the bears were coming out of and the eagles, and they would have eaten these oiled animals that were dead, and then the carnage would have continued with the animals being killed because they ate the oil. We did find several seals and other animals that were transported to the pool in the town of Homer, and they later were taken to a animal rehab, and they, as far as I know, a lot of them survived. They told me I had to have a tetanus shot before I got there, and I was never bitten, but they're kind of aggressive, and so I'm glad. But it was an interesting thing, and it was a sad situation.
Thank you, Gail. Do we have any more questions for Gail?
Question.
Yes.
So, hi, Gail. Thank you so much for your service.
It was my pleasure.
With your work with the police, are you still involved? Did you do any training with the women specifically, or what is your role at this point? I know you retired.
Actually, they had an all women's class. I believe it was the 96th class where they graduated, I think 30 or 40 women. At one point, I was taken down there to be a role model for them. I actually, education and teaching is not my field of expertise. I was not actually happy to be there at that time. I of course wanted to help them. I wanted to have more women into the state police. They now have several hundred women in the state police. And I believe we're up to 3,000 men. We're up to the 8,000 number for badge numbers. Mine was 3020. My husband was 2325. So you see, they've had 5,000 guys and girls graduate after me in the academy. And so we always can use more. And now I'm not sure what the funding is. There is a class in there now. I don't know how many are scheduled to graduate. Yes, I would encourage, well, that's an interesting question. I would encourage certain people to become police officers. I would encourage people who have the desire in an emergency to move forward towards the bad situation, not those who stand still or retreat. Those are not the people that want to be police officers. You have to want to run towards danger to be an effective police officer. And so I would encourage all men and women to have that desire and have that attribute in their makeup, and then you may very well make it as a police officer. Of course, it takes more than that, but you have to pass the training. Yeah. Did I answer your question or not? I'm not sure.
Yes, you did. And also, you're the adult services. Are you working somewhere now?
Oh, yes, I'm glad you asked that. I am a volunteer for the Salvation Army. Come to Newton Walmart, and you'll hear me ring the bell ring the bell, 10 to 4, 36 hours a week from now to Christmas.
Wow.
And let me tell you, I sleep like a rock at night being outside in all that cold. My face is bright red. Please come and donate to my Red Pot. And then other than that, do I do anything? Yes, I do volunteer work for the church. Last night we actually sang to the, we have terrible voices, but last night we sang to the shut-ins in several of the of our parishioners' houses, and I do volunteer work sometimes behind the scenes.
Well, Gail, it's been an honor to have you here with us, and thank you.
My pleasure is mine. We met under very unusual circumstances. I came in to do some copying for paperwork, and I don't have the copy machine down pat. Mary Grace was helping.
I'm sure we all feel the same way. We're very impressed with a woman who's done so much in her life, and is such a great example to all women. What can be achieved when you put your mind to something. You are a trailblazer.
I am. But see, not when you're the first of something, it's not necessarily the easy path to go, because what happened when I was having a baby? Oh my gosh, I thought the state police, they didn't know what to do with me. They had no idea what to do with me at that time. And there's other things, the first, so being the first has some detriments to it too. It's easier for the second, third, and fourth than it was for the first one. But I still would never have wanted it any other way, because as far as I know, I'm capable of taking the heat if anybody wants to give me. That's it. I like being in the heat, actually.
Well, that's why you go to Alaska 6 months out of the year, right? Because you like these.
Yeah, right.
Gail, there's a couple of nice comments in the chat. Loved your story. Thank you so much for taking the time and share your story. And Lisa Martin says, Gail, I was on the Sanderson wall pack. Where I just lost it.
With you. Yeah.
100 years ago.
Yes, I was on the Board of Education for a while. When my kids left that school, I was elected into the board. I didn't want to be there while my kids were there. So it worked out well. Yes.
Somebody else says, thanks for your service. Thank you. Great presentation. She is watching from, Beverly is watching from Hunterdon County, and she lived in Sussex County, 1984 to 87.
Yep, and
So
I worked in Hunterdon County by being in Clinton years ago.
Yes. I'm right by the Perryville Barracks and by the Kingwood Barracks now.
Yes, I'm familiar with that area. Yes, Hunterdon County is a very nice county.
Okay, well, thank you. We're going to say goodbye now.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed
Excellent.
it. And thank you for your questions. And it was a pleasure serving in the state police. It was a pleasure serving the state of New Jersey. And if I didn't have migraine headaches, I would have been there many more years.
Oh,
What can I tell you?
And happy holidays to everyone.
Merry Christmas. Come to Walmart, ring the bell. Come on, volunteers.
Thank you, Gail. Have a great, stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Bye-bye.